And we are here at Showtime, broadcast sponsor Luxor North America, STV and Onsat Magazines, and Caltronics Incorporated. We are here today at the Wintergreen Ski Hill near Spring Green, Wisconsin. And Joe, I want to have you tell our people out there why we are here today.
Well, we wanted to first of all show you something very typical and very beautiful here in southwest Wisconsin. We wanted to also show you some of the typical countryside where cable cannot get and where line of sight reception from nearby cities is almost impossible. This is typical of what the industry needs. The hills, the wide open spaces, that's where we come and provide excellent television. Also, Pat, the reason we're here today is to show that even skiing has a tie-in with satellite. It's because of this. Skiing started out as a form of communication, people wanting to visit and communicate with other people. The history of skiing goes back many thousands of years when the first man and woman wanted to get together possibly or talk to somebody in the next commune. They found that old animal bones strapped to their feet provided the first skis, maybe a nice couple of clavicles strapped to their feet, and away they go, something that turned up at the end. At any rate, it has a tremendous history, and as you can imagine, the first Scandinavians in this country brought along skis, and they in turn taught the other people about skiing. That was way back. Prior to the Revolutionary War, the Canadians were doing a lot of skiing to get back and forth, otherwise they were isolated. Now, about World War I, it became quite popular. In fact, prior to that, in the gold rush days in the 49ers, they used it here in America to get back and forth out in California. But World War I saw the real advent of skiing as a tournament. The first tournament, incidentally, was at Red Wing, Minnesota, where people actually competed back in 1886. But here we are today on a modern ski lift, typical of many ski lifts in the West, the East, and here in the Midwest. And they're beautiful, and the countryside is great. The wind chill is cold, quite chilly today. The fellow just told us 30 below, but I didn't feel that bad.
I don't believe it.
You don't believe it. That's a little history of this great sport.
So it's nice to know that it has a similar history to the satellite industry. It first started out as a form of communication and now as a form of entertainment.
But it took thousands of years, and here we are only 5 or 6 years into the industry, and it's going like gangbusters.
To show you how it's going like gangbusters, we are now going to go to Washington, D.C., and this week's Space Track Report.
As reported earlier, the Council for Space is now preparing for litigation against cable TV interests, broadcasters, programmers, and others. The association is also gearing up for the subcommittee hearings in the House of Representatives, and these hearings are set for March 6th. Litigation against cable TV operators, broadcasters, and satellite network programmers will help ensure a number of things. Number one, that consumers are not denied access to any scrambled programming. Number two, that access is provided at reasonable rates. Number three, that coercion of programmers by cable TV systems is halted. Number four, that monopolistic practices of cable TV companies is halted. Number five, that decoders are available through satellite TV dealers. And number six, to correct the misperception, much of it rooted in inaccurate media reports, that more than one decoder will be required. Legal proceedings of this nature are of paramount importance in order to set the record straight, in order to separate fact from fantasy, and to show that Earth Station owners who are unfairly portrayed as video pirates are law-abiding citizens. Hearings are also an opportunity to demonstrate how cable system operators use anti-competitive techniques to monopolize the distribution and sale of programming, and to show how they are attempting to force satellite Earth Station dealers out of the market. These hearings will help heighten awareness on a number of our legislative efforts as well. On H.R. 1840, which ensures availability of programming at reasonable rates, S. 1618, a companion bill in the Senate, which also assures availability at reasonable rates, and H.R. 1769, designed to place a 2-year moratorium on scrambling. Hearings of this magnitude will require the participation and support of all manufacturers, distributors, dealers, and consumers, and more importantly, home earth station owners who know better than anyone else the benefits of owning a satellite dish. Your participation is needed not only to support the legislative hearings, but also to support all of the legal proceedings that are now being undertaken. As we mentioned before, Space intends to provide gavel-to-gavel coverage of the hearings on March 6th. And we also urge members and consumers to tune in to this weekly broadcast each Tuesday evening and repeated on Wednesdays over SpaceNet 1. The proceeds necessary to underwrite all of these activities, as we've mentioned before, are coming from the Space Future Fund. The following companies are committed, and we'd like to mention these companies by name now. We're very encouraged by support from these corporations, and the support of additional corporations is required in order for us to undertake all of these activities. For now, though, we have the support from Arc Finders, Chaparral, Cincinnati Microwave, Curtis Mathis, DH Satellite, DX Communications, Delta Satellite, ESP, Hero Communications, Calltronics, Luxor, National Satellite Communications, Norsat, Odom Antennas, Orbitron, Paraclips, RL Drake, Radex, SRC, STS, Spectrum Tech, Southern Span, TCOM, Uniden, USS, Stoli, and Winegard. As we've done in the past, we urge viewers to continue writing and trying to get in touch with CBS and with WOR. As you know, both have announced their intentions to scramble. Both have said they would do so without providing access to Earth Station owners. We're quite displeased with these announcements by both companies, and we do plan to take action against them. In other news, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation is now considering whether to beam a superstation to the United States, making Canadian television programming available to U.S. cable systems free of charge. In a report, the CBC suggested that the proposed superstation would offer Canadian advertisers a tantalizing business opportunity and would offer Canadian producers and artists the chance to export their talents in television. According to Multi-Channel News, an industry trade publication, the report was presented to the Federal Task Force on Broadcast Policy in December and made public earlier this month. The task force is expected to consider the report and make its own recommendations to the Canadian Radio Television Commission. The report suggests that a CBC television station in Windsor, Ontario, may be the most likely base for the superstation. Programs for the venture would come from the CBC, from educational broadcasters, from independent producers, and the National Film Board. We're going to take a brief break, and we'll be back in one moment.
Discounts to Space Dealer members. Nevada Satellite and Midwest Satellite announce a new program to help those who support space. That's right, special discounts on all products including Chaparral Sierra, Norsat, Continental, and much, much more, available to Space Dealer members. Call 800-255-1382, extension 58, for details on this and other discount programs. That's 800-255-1382, extension 58.
Welcome back. A report in the recent issue of Multi-Channel News, a industry trade publication, notes that home box office subscriptions showed a slight gain in 1985. Home box office subscriptions for 1985 showed only a modest increase. Some analysts, however, said that any growth was unlikely given the decline suffered at the pay service during the first half of 1985. At year-end 1984, HBO's last official count, they reported approximately 14,575,000 subscribers, and that figure reportedly dropped to 14,275,000 by mid-1985. Still, one knowledgeable source said that HBO added about 125,000 subs during 1985, a record gain of a few hundred thousand. A spokesperson for HBO wouldn't confirm any numbers, noting the corporate policy is to issue only annual subscriber counts with the fourth quarter earnings report. One analyst pointed out that HBO had aggressively marketed in order to achieve gains, but added he believed there was a large turnover in subscribers, noting that subs who disconnect wouldn't resubscribe, and he said he was not optimistic about future growth. Part of the problem with HBO's growth and the growth of other pay television services seems to be evident when you look at the growth of the video cassette industry. Another report in Broadcasting Magazine, another industry trade publication, states that the bullish predictions that were once being made about cable are now being made about home video. In a study that Merrill Lynch commissioned, a forecast was made, and it stated that home video will surpass cable in share of viewership within the next decade. In 1995, the study said, home video will capture 25% of total viewership, while cable will account for just 13%. Broadcast television will still have the lion's share with 62%. The growth in home video viewership, which includes viewing of pre-recorded tapes, as well as programs recorded off the air, will be driven by the growth in the number of video cassette recorders. November ratings improved for Lifetime and for the Nashville network. Both Lifetime and the Nashville network made some gains in November in their monthly audience ratings, while the remaining cable networks declined or held steady, according to the latest AC Nielsen figures. For its prime time rating, Lifetime was up to a 0.6 from a 0.3 a year ago, which translates to about 144,000 homes. I think one problem we've been seeing lately is the tendency to call viewers of Earth Station programming and homeowners of Earth Station equipment as freeloaders. And as we've mentioned, it's important that if you are being interviewed by a local newspaper or broadcast outlet, that you also note that most of the theft of service, and we've heard reports that billions of dollars are lost in theft of service, and I repeat, more than half of the losses come from cable television subscribers and from people who are climbing cable TV poles to hook themselves up. And here's one report to document that. A federal court has sentenced a man to 9 months imprisonment for stealing services from New York Times Cable in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. New York Times, which is a unit of the New York Times Company, said the action represented the first imprisonment under the 1984 federal law. We will return next week at this time to provide you an update from Washington, D.C. Thank you. This is Joe Boyle.
Coming up, that's coming right up.
Dealers, Luxor presents great savings on the best selection of satellite products in the industry. It's your Luxor Satellite System Sales event, and it's the easiest, most efficient, most cost-effective way to get the satellite products and services you need to be a successful home satellite TV dealer. One call delivers the electronics, antennas, and accessories, all Luxor brand, all guaranteed and all backed up with technical support when you need it. Here is system package pricing like you've never seen before, ranging from the top-of-the-line 9900 block satellite system with a 10.5 antenna to the $99.95 receiver package with a 9-foot aluminum antenna. All prices are suggested dealer cost. Actual dealer costs are determined by your authorized Luxor distributor, who has the details, or call 1-800-245-9995 for sales and service information. Ask about the $25 manufacturer's rebate.
With more than 100 channels available on your home satellite system, a good programming guide is an absolute necessity. OnSat packs more viewing information in its 88-page weekly format than any other program guide, including daily primetime highlights in a handy grid format, plus complete listings in an easy-to-read rolling log. Daily sports listings by category. The largest alphabetical movie description of any satellite guide. A complete listing of satellite locations and each transponder, and much, much more. All of this can be yours for only $45 per year. That's less than $1 per week. We're so sure you'll like OnSat that we would like to send you a free sample copy. Pick up the telephone and call toll-free now for your free copy of Onset. Call 1-800-438-2020. That's 1-800-438-2020.
Welcome back to Space Showtime. I'm Pat Olson, now sitting in a warm studio with industry news. There are two bills in Congress right now designed to delay scrambling and to ensure a fair marketplace for programming. They are H.R. 1769 and H.R. 1840, and they're being examined now by the House Communications Subcommittee. Hearings on these bills start March 6th. Well, there's another subcommittee that deals with home satellite TV, the Subcommittee on Courts, Civil Liberties, and the Administration of Justice. For simplicity's sake, let's call it the Copyright Subcommittee. It has already held a hearing, and that was in November.
This morning, the subcommittee turns its attention to the subject of copyright policy issues arising from new communications technologies.
One of those new technologies is satellite TV, and Subcommittee Chairman Robert Kastenmeier says he tentatively plans more hearings about it.
Well, we will probably have early hearings. I don't have any scheduled at the moment, but I would think we would have early hearings that would follow up on that. We have one part of the question. As you know, there are bills in the Congress, and they're either before the House, either be before Commerce Committee, before the communications site matter, because both copyright and communications policy largely determine what the ground rules are for the use of anything and access to anything.
Space Counsel Rick Brown testified before the subcommittee's first hearing on satellite TV, and he had a proposal about compulsory licenses that cable operators receive. A compulsory license allows cable operators to use copyrighted programming without permission, but for a fixed fee. Brown said if cable operators act anti-competitively toward satellite TV, they should not be allowed to keep their compulsory licenses.
Because the main purpose of cable's compulsory license is to enrich the public domain, by expanding the delivery of television services, it follows that if the beneficiaries of that license act anti-competitively, to restrict the delivery of that programming, the rationale of their compulsory license should be called into question. When cable operators act anti-competitively to restrict the market for the delivery of satellite services, they no longer deserve the benefit of their compulsory license.
And what would happen if a cable company lost its compulsory license? Well, chances are it could be sued for copyright infringement and possibly go out of business. We'll have to wait and see if the Copyright Subcommittee does anything about cable's compulsory license. But Chairman Kastenmeier has his own opinions on home satellite TV's access to programming.
Frankly, I would like to see us be able to sort out the equities here and also to ensure that access on a reasonable basis to dish laws. I think the precipitous scrambling of many signals, not just HBO, but many, many others, could wipe out a good deal of programming that would be expect one to receive. Now, I've gone through the channel list for Earth station owners, and I know there's an incredible amount of programming up there, just an incredible amount. You know, you can see the material that's up there, and it's tremendous. But I do think that that willy-nilly scrambling early is not a development in terms of how to, how ultimately the problem ought to be worked out. I frankly don't like, personally, I don't like scrambling in the first place. Even if you had scramblers and even descramblers, they were available. And let's say I would still, there ought to be an easier way of doing it. That's my own view.
Mike Gustafson, next in his product review, has a review of a satellite receiver. We'll see which one it is next. Stay tuned.
Introducing the Coltronics Trans 10X. With the latest in antenna technology, this beautifully designed and crafted 10-foot dish is strong and accurate. Bolts are based on the use intended for all. Tetcher's black finish and maximum strength ribs, hub, and rim. Experience the quality yourself at a price you won't believe. The Trans 10X lives up to the Cultronics tradition of quality.
With more than 100 channels available on your home satellite system, a good programming guide is an absolute necessity. OnSat packs more viewing information in its 88-page weekly format than any other program guide, including daily primetime highlights in a handy grid format, plus complete listings in an easy-to-read rolling log. Daily sports listings by category. The largest alphabetical movie description of any satellite guide. A complete listing of satellite locations and each transponder, and much, much more. All of this can be yours for only $45 per year. That's less than $1 per week. We're so sure you'll like OnSat that we would like to send you a free sample copy. Pick up the telephone and call toll-free now for your free copy of OnSat. Call 1-800-438-2020. That's 1-800-438-2020.
Mike Gustafson is technical editor for STV and Satellite Retailer magazines. He does product reviews for us, and let's see what he has for us this week.
Good evening and welcome. Tonight we're going to do a little product review on the Transat satellite receiver. The Transat 2M7 satellite receiver is a Korean manufacturer imported by Transat Microwave Systems of Los Angeles. The receiver is a rather simple receiver. As you can see, a black front panel with lots of knobs to play with here. Let's talk about what some of those knobs are. The push button is power on off. The first two buttons are skew, horizontal and vertical skew. Next button or knob in this case is audio tune. In this case, video tune. Then we have an AFC control. Then antenna polarity. This particular receiver has what they called a pulse width modulation type of system, which is typical of all of the chaparral type of feed systems. 3 connections and you're in business. And if we push it into auto, it automatically selects the polarization as we turn the knob. We can reverse the polarization I should say, with these buttons, and this is a format reversal. Each time we change the button, the channel, the polarization is automatically taken care of for us. With the AFC plugged in, pushed in here, we have a video fine tune that's not necessary, but if we do, we can in fact change the fine tuning. The Transat does not come with a remote control, so I would suggest that this receiver be installed close to your viewing station so you don't wear out the rug walking between your easy chair and where the satellite system is set up. The receiver is a block using a dielectrically stabilized oscillator, utilizing the 450 to 950 megahertz intermediate frequency. That's a sufficiently high enough IF that you should be concerned a little bit about the cable length. If you go much over 200 feet, I certainly wouldn't suggest that you use an RG59. Something like an RG6 or 11 would be better indicated. Okay, let's now look at how this receiver works a little bit, looking at the monitor here. We can look at both the waveform monitor and the color TV monitor here. As I'm on transponder 11 SATCOM 3, 10, that's 9. You can see how it selects the polarization for me and the AFC snaps it in. It's a scramble channel on transponder 5, and 3, and then 2, and then 1. Boom, snap it all the way up through, say, 17, 18's blank today, 19 with C-SPAN, etc. This is a nice, simple little receiver. Works very well. Can't say too much about it in the negative vein. About the only things that I would like to see on this receiver is the manual should be a little bit better, and it certainly would be a benefit to have a infrared remote control. The data on the receiver did pretty well. Let's go over and take a look at the data sheet here. This is our consumer data sheet that appears in STV. So here's the consumer data sheet that would go with that. The video signal noise ratio was about 42 dB. Frequency response was a little high. It rolled off about 5 dB on the high end at 4.2 megahertz. IF bandwidth was 24 megahertz, and the threshold was something less than 8 dB. Audio distortion was fine at 1.5%. Signal noise ratio for the audio was 42 dB, and the audio pass band was from 150 Hz to 18 kilohertz. The final score of the receiver, let me back up and say that there is no positioner with this system. It's just a receiver by itself, so we had no score for antenna positioner sections. The final score was 60%, which is fair. And these photos show the typical photos that I take off of Galaxy 1, looking at the VITS channels 17, line 1 and line 2, channel 17. Here you can see in the frequency response the roll-off that I'm talking about 5 dB roll-off from half a megahertz. That should be flat all the way out if it were perfect. Rest of it looks pretty good. This photo shows the pulse bar waveform. The bars are rolled off a little bit. The high frequency roll-off is occurring there again, and the bar the pulse is reduced quite a bit. But a fairly good little receiver, all things considered. It is not meant to be your bell and whistle receiver. It's meant to be your, if you will, your bottom end, your low end receiver for systems where you're not trying to spend $4,000 or $5,000 for the satellite system. Okay, I think that just about brings us to the end of this little guy. Once again, it's the Transat 2M7, manufactured in Korea to local specifications. Block receiver using 450-950. Good little radio, works fine. I had it on the bench for a couple of months playing with it. Does what it's supposed to do, and it's a very low-cost unit. If you're looking for a simple to operate little receiver, I certainly can recommend the 2M7 to you. So if you have any questions or want me to review something special just for you, drop me a line at Post Office Box 20700, San Jose, California, 95160. Until next time, good evening.
Mike will be back on Space Showtime in a few minutes, and Joe Kelsch and I are here about that.
Right, we have the opportunity to talk to Dan Davidson, who is the head man of the ski patrol here at Wintergreen. I don't know what the title exactly is, Dan.
I'd be director of the Wintergreen Alpine, and also we have a Nordic ski patrol where we patrol Nordic trails in this area also.
Well, let's get a brief description of what this ski patrol is all about. It's part of a volunteer program?
Right. The National Ski Patrol is a volunteer organization that encompasses the entire United States, and most of the people that are patrollers volunteer their time, and our main job is to help people in first aid situations, try to make the skiing areas safer for the public, and make people aware that this is a good, clean family sport, and to make it safe and not as hazardous as some people might think. And if you come out here any weekday or during the week, there's usually a number of patrollers who are more than glad to help you. So you have a watchful and helping hand at all times.
How about the question exactly of injury? If you have some preparation, some good training, you cut down on chances.
Right. We've done surveys, extensive surveys, and found out that if most people who are beginners take 2 to 3 lessons initially that first year, or maybe a brush-up lesson at the beginning of the next year, it reduces your chances of injuries by about 70 or 80%. We have a motto in the ski patrol. It says, ski under control. And if you always think of that, the chances of getting hurt are very, very little.
Great. Now, this particular facility here offers some tremendous skiing opportunities. I've noticed the enthusiasm of people like yourself.
This is probably one of the most challenging areas in the Midwest, but because it's so challenging, it presents a few problems, and this relates to skiing in general, and it's something that's done at this area, and more areas are starting to do, and that is you definitely have to groom. We have machines that groom early in the morning. As you see the slopes here, you'll see that it looks like it's almost manicured. This is also done at night, so by grooming hills, it makes it a lot safer and a lot easier for people to ski, and you can take somebody who's a beginner on a fairly difficult hill that's groomed nicely, and they'll still be able to make it down. So that's very important. We groom, and most of the other areas do, but we groom in 2 times a day, early in the morning, at night. So that's important for the person who's just learning, or anybody.
So you take care of your ski hill and you take care of your satellite dish, and you'll get all the rewards from them.
Right. I think you can learn from both. If you've got a satellite or you're skiing, you'll learn a lot of educational stuff, and that's what our job is, to inform the public. I'm sure is with your satellite. business.
Dan Davidson of the National Ski Patrol, and you're based at Wintergreen Ski Hill near Spring Green, Wisconsin. I want to thank you for joining us on Space Showtime.
Appreciate it, and come out and ski with us. We'll make it an enjoyable experience. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
And as Dan takes his tour down the Wintergreen ski slope, we're going to tell you that Mike Gustafson and Chris Schulteis will be up on Space Showtime coming right up. They're going to take a tour and give you some predictions, so stay tuned for that.
The Coltronics Trans 8, a great antenna. This transparent 8-foot antenna delivers an out-of-this-world picture to you. Not only does it perform, it looks great. A low-luster appeal with a baked acrylic thermoset black finish. The Trans 8 aims to get the best signals. Coltronic test results are based on the Chaparral feed horns, recommended for antennas. The Trans 8 quality antenna from the at Coltronics.
Satellite TV Preview is the best thing next to your satellite dish. With all those programs now at your fingertips, you won't want to miss a thing. Satellite Preview lists over 100 transponders in an easy-to-read weekly grid schedule. It has a daily list of movies, specials, and sports, plus a list of sports by event. Call and subscribe now for only $47 for 52 issues and save $31 off the newsstand price. Or call for a free sample copy. Dealers, we also have a special offer for you. Call 800-826-0735. Visa and MasterCard accepted. Satellite TV Preview, the best thing next to television.
The Space STTI show in Las Vegas is less than 1 month away. Can you believe it slipped up on us so quickly? Well, we want to remind you there was a tour of the Space STTI Nashville show last September that we showed you, and during that tour, industry journalists Mike Gustafson and Chris Schulteis gave you some predictions for the upcoming Las Vegas show. Now we're going to see part 1 of that tour right now.
This is Chris Schulteis, and I'm with Mike Gustafson, and it's our pleasure to take you on a guided tour of the Nashville '85 show. Mike, the first satellite industry show was in 1979 in Oklahoma City.
Right.
There were 8 exhibitors and 550 attendees. This show, there are 350 some exhibitors, 750 booths, and 15,000 plus attendees. Have we come a long way?
Yeah, 6 years later. Figured out 6 years. The 1980 show in San Jose had just a bit more than the Tulsa or the show first held in Oklahoma, and it was around a swimming pool. In fact, all the antennas were stationed right around the swimming pool, and we had no more than maybe 12 antennas at that particular show, and that was the first show that I attended. So certainly this particular show at Nashville represents, I think, the culmination of 6 years of technology and dealer and distributor interest in this particular business, and I think nothing typifies that kind of involvement and commitment as much as the booth we're standing next to here, which is a Luxor booth. As I understand it from Luxor, that this particular booth, it without a doubt is the biggest booth at the show. It's certainly the tallest booth at the show. And they tell me that if the roof hadn't been so low, they would have had antennas on top of the booth, notwithstanding the fact it's a 2-story booth. And also that the fact that the booth cost over $150,000 to manufacture and takes 3 days to assemble. And when you think about the fact that the show is only 3 days long, 3 days to set it up, 3 days for the show, and 3 days to tear it back down again, that's quite a technological achievement just in displays and in booth systems.
My bet is it'll take less than 3 days to tear down.
Yeah, right. A stick of dynamite does wonders.
It's interesting to think that $150,000, that's well more than the average person pays for their home.
Yes, and there's still, as a juxtaposition, there's still a significant number of booths and displays in this particular show that are single card table displays where someone is selling a product. So the entrepreneurs are still there, the mom and pop operations are still abounding with people trying to start a business. They have a new widget, a new mousetrap, and they are trying their best to compete, and they're finding their niches. And each one finds their little product niche that they can sell and do business with.
you know, for our viewers, you're really getting the feel of the show with the people walking in between us and the camera. This is the third day of the show, and we picked this on purpose because this is the slowest day. If it were Monday, you would see just a sea of humanity. It'd be impossible to film. But even today, when the show is winding down and people are starting to get on buses and airplanes and head out of here, you still get the feeling of how many people are wandering around. Something that amazes me about the Luxor booth, this is an obvious symbol of commitment that Luxor has made to this industry.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, they're trying to say, hey, if we spend this much money for one show, you know that we're serious and here to stay.
You don't throw the booth away after the first show. That's for darn sure. The last booth, they managed to make it last 3 years, and so this booth, being it's mostly aluminum and high-grade plastic and steel, I imagine it's going to be around for a long time to come. And what do you do with the booth if you're not in this industry? Well, you don't put cars in it, so I imagine it's going to be for the satellite industry.
Well, I really don't want this to sound like an ad for Luxor, but they really have done something very special here in the booth and the new product.
Right.
Why don't we walk over and have a look at this, and maybe you can show me how it works. I don't know.
Well, let's first make sure that we've got one that it's got a battery in it.
Let him take a good look at that handheld remote, because it's probably the most complex one I've seen.
Well, this remote is a remote that they have used for their TV sets in Europe and their videotape machines, which they're very big on in Europe. And what they have done is adapt this remote over to the satellite receiver they manufacture. And this is a brand new 9900. It's probably one of the most advanced receivers to be displayed at this show, and it's a brand new product. This is their first announcement of that product. This particular receiver has the power drive built into it, such that you have the satellite display G1 transponder 5. Transponder 3.
I don't know if that will show well on the camera.
Yeah, but you have to trust my word for it. This displays the video and satellite channel. This is the audio system and a signal strength meter. And for during setup, we have all of the different setup modes that are identified here. The Dolby noise reductions, basic antenna east and west, polarity adjustments, scan modes, store modes, and auto test. Also, this receiver has audio amplifiers built into it. Luxor has announced the new set of speakers that go with their satellite receiver. So we have a audio amplifier, left and right channels, that you can drive directly with no stereo in between. To run the drive, we have to have the companion power drive, power supply right here. So this combination here represents the system. This is the power supply for the drive, and all the intelligence and microprocessor are built inside the receiver. That's also a quartz synthesized receiver, and fully programmable. You never have to worry about skew adjustment versus satellite. You don't have to worry about polarization ever again. Once it's set up, you select a particular satellite you want, the polarization is handled, it comes right up and run. It's getting to the point where while this remote looks very complicated, there's only a very few buttons that you really have to deal with in order to make it do anything. If you're up to playing Captain Commander, you can run all the buttons and it does something, but if you want to make it very simple, it's simply a matter of you can increment and decrement the channels by just pushing a button either on the receiver itself or an equivalent up-down button on the remote control. Parental control is set up where you assign a parental control number to it, it locks out a channel, and you take the remote control away and you hide it or put it someplace where the kids can't get it. Then the kids can run it locally, but when they come up on the parental locked out channel, it says PL on it, and they can't watch that channel, but they know.
I may be able to scoop you, I'm not sure. I think I know of a feature on this receiver that's unique, and I don't know if you're aware of it. It has a built-in terrestrial interference filter.
Yes, it does.
What is special about that terrestrial interference filter?
All right, I'll buy it. What's special about that terrestrial interference filter?
You can program it to cut in on only certain channels and certain satellites.
That's right, yeah.
For instance, if you got terrestrial interference on G1, say channel 5,
right?
Okay, but you don't have them on the rest of them. Well, you can program it so the terrestrial filter will only cut on in G1.5. And that won't reduce the video quality on the other channels. Yeah, I believe that's unique in the industry.
That is. That's the first time. And there is a button on the remote control that says TI, and you can turn the filters on and off any time that you want without having it being programmed as well.
Okay, this is a block receiver.
Yes.
And they do have what they sort of coined as a slave unit.
Their slave unit. Well, their slave unit is probably better than a lot of the top-of-the-line units that are on the market today. This particular receiver has all the features. As you can see, it's a manual receiver. There's no remote control. Polarity control, automatic fine-tuning, The channel is selected just with a detent tuning, a very nice signal strength meter. No stereo, nothing special about it, polarization skew, but it is the low-cost unit to the 9900. You put it up in the kids' room or in your extra bedroom, and it allows you to have a loop-through system so you could run the same IF. So it too is a whole new product they've just introduced at this show.
I'm definitely impressed with the Luxor booth, and to a company from Sweden, which is rather unusual to be heavily involved in the consumer electronics business, I really do think it shows a very strong commitment, and I think that should be commended.
Yeah, for a whole new product.
I certainly wish them all the best of the luck. Let's move on and look at some of the other booths and technology that are being displayed here today.
Okay. Okay, now we're up from the second level onto the second level of the show. The first level was the main hall. We're now on a smaller room where there are all kinds of more booths, and there's a third level above us. So the Luxor booth, the Coltronics booth was down on the main floor. This is our secondary floor where we've come up, and then we'll soon go up on the third floor of the show just to give you some idea of how big it is.
You know, unfortunately, the camera can't get back far enough to give our viewers an idea of the scope and how huge this show is. I don't even know how many square feet, but it's got to be hundreds of thousands of square feet.
We've overflowed. We've in fact overflowed on this particular show. We've stopped here, I think, on a very important booth. This is the Scientific Atlanta booth. Scientific Atlanta might be new to a lot of our viewers and readers. Scientific Atlanta is the biggie of the commercial systems, data, video. Anytime you go into a commercial uplink, commercial downlink, you're going to find Scientific Atlanta equipment. Scientific Atlanta, a number of years ago, looked at this market, tried to decide a best way to enter it. They chose Heathkit as their partner. They came in, they offered equipment back probably 3 years ago, and found the market really wasn't ready for their kind of marketing schemes, their kind of equipment, and they backed off. Now with this particular show, they've re-entered with what they call the HomeSat by Scientific Atlanta. The HomeSat is a perforated dish. It's a 9-foot dish. It is obviously built to commercial standards. I'll tell you that the dish is absolutely bulletproof. It's probably one of the most solid dishes we've ever seen in an industry, because they've taken a commercial dish and they've modified it to be a home market dish.
Is it significant, their entry, that the commercial people now realize that this industry has come of age and that it's time for all the big guns to get in there and start battling for market share?
Right. Well, let's take a look at the receiver. I think that's part of the fun part of this little guy here. Is the antenna, as you might expect, is just one thing, but what the viewer, what the reader really is interested in is, well, what does their receiver do? Their particular receiver has infrared wireless remote control. It's a full function receiver. There at this moment is not a drive associated with it, but it has all other features. It's programmable audio, programmable video. It is a block receiver. They offer their own LNBs that go with it. It's a complete system. When you buy an SA HomeSat system, you get the antenna, the feed, the LNB, and the receiver. This receiver doesn't want for any particular feature whatsoever. And as you can see, if they'll pan over and take a look at it, it's a nice-looking, low-profile receiver. I think the receiver is right at the middle price market for the home satellite system. It's not your high-tech, high bells and whistles product, nor is it your low-end product. It's aimed right at the median market, and I think that's a good entry point for Scientific Atlanta at this point.
I'm going to try and scoop you on a feature that this receiver has.
Oh, yes,
like it
go
did
ahead.
On the Luxor. It has a help button.
Yes.
Why don't you explain to the viewers what the help button does?
The help button is if any time in programming this receiver or playing with the receiver, you become confused as to what it's really doing, you push the help button, it drops you back to a pre-programmed channel, video and audio channel, and in fact, allows you to start over again. In other words, if you get all the audio bandwidths wrong, or you get the audio frequencies wrong, or you get the channel inverted incorrectly, you push that button and it resets to 0 and you start over again. That's just to bail you out in case you get into a problem. But the receiver is so simple to operate, I can't imagine the help button.
You haven't seen me operate a receiver, obviously.
No, I haven't.
You mentioned something about there's not a drive associated with it, yet I'm looking at the antenna over there and I see a motor drive on it.
Yes.
Maybe we better get some help from somebody from SA.
Why don't you come on over here and clarify something for us?
It's okay. It's a real easy question.
Yeah, it's a real easy question. Well, you're already...
You're doing fine. Don't worry about it.
I made a rather sweeping statement. There was no drive associated with this, but obviously there must be a drive associated with it. Does this particular product have a drive associated with it? and it's a separate power supply?
That's true.
Okay.
How is it a programmable drive or just an east-west manual drive?
It's an east-west manual.
Okay.
Okay,
It's non-programmable.
Non-programmable, and it has a separate power supply, and is that's controllable from remote control?
That's true.
Okay, so
Okay.
it's a simple operation. All right.
Bruce Linton from SA.
Scientific Atlanta
Right.
keeps us straight all the time.
You
Thank you
bet
very
us
much.
out. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I think we've spent enough time and occupied this booth long enough. Let's
Well,
take
the
a
only other thing I wanted to mention, they have both a perforated antenna and a solid cushion,
antenna,
right?
And you ought to see the mount that they put that antenna on. It is truly a marvelous mount from the standpoint of bulletproof and pure mass. It's quite a system. So let's go take a look at the Hughes booth.
That's interesting.
Yes.
Hughes Communication
Hughes
coming up. This way.
All right. I'll take that and
You got
walk
the
with
mic?
you. Right. Well, here we're in the Hughes Communications booth, which is kind of interesting booth. You'd at first ask your question, what are they selling? Well, first off, they're not producing a receiver or an antenna.
Wait a minute. My question is, what are they doing here? I mean, these are the people who build the most powerful domestic satellites in the sky. I mean, $100 million pieces of incredible technology. I don't think there's any buyers for satellites here at the show, are there?
No, not hardly. Not when you're looking at $27 million for Galaxy 1. And they brought you Galaxy 1, Galaxy 2, Galaxy 3, Westars 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and soon to be 6 if they can resurrect it.
Do you have a cheat sheet or are you doing that from memory?
All of the LeeSats 1 through 4 that are being used by the Navy. So, and frankly, if you were to look at the satellite arc, you would find out that, in fact, almost 90% of the satellites that are in orbit are manufactured by Hughes Communications. Hughes' purpose in this show is very simple. They are producing KU-band satellites now, and they feel that there is a very definite market out there for direct broadcast systems, whether it be C-band or KU-band. And they're here to tell the world that they want to endorse this industry. They think it's an industry that can survive, and they want us to know that they're friendly to us. And frankly, Galaxy 1, it's still possible for them to bundle software off of Galaxy 1 to offer a DBS on Galaxy 1.
You know, there's
C-band.
some beautiful signs and illustrations on the backdrop here, and most of them appear to be KU-band satellites.
Yes. Well, they
I'm
talk about the difference between the fixed service, satellite service, and direct broadcast satellite services for KU-band. They're talking about adjacent satellite interference, both C-band and KU-band. They're making a pretty strong pitch for KU-band, but they are obviously involved in the C-band system. But I think it's a very, if you will, legitimizing of the market. They have Hughes Communications buy what mean like about, I'd say 4 booths worth of a STTI space show, and come here, people hear their complaints to explain what Hughes is doing and how they can help us in our marketing and our market area.
We got Scientific Atlanta, who's
Biggie.
2 heavyweights who are making
Very
their presence
big.
felt in this. I think we've come of age, Mike.
Oh yes, very definitely, we've arrived.
Let us go and see, look at a couple of the smaller exhibitors here.
Okay.
And see what kind of products they
All
got.
right, I'm all for that. Let's go.
We're
over
going to
here.
go that way, yeah.
We'll see the second half of Mike and Chris's tour next week on Space Showtime. It's then that Mike gives his predictions, and we'll see how closely he comes in his predictions for the Space STTI Las Vegas show. Coming up on Space Showtime, we will show you how a prominent attorney is using video.
In 1981, we set out to build a unique satellite TV magazine. For 5 years, we've covered all the satellite program news and now bring you over 8,000 hours of satellite viewing each week with the easiest to read grid format. If you own a dish, you need to know. And when you need to know, you need Channel Guide. For your free sample, call us at 800-654-3006. Channel Guide gets with the program.
Welcome to the world of Satellite TV Opportunities, the marketing techniques magazine for satellite television that reviews the latest technology and introduces you to people you should know.
Satellite TV Opportunities is the marketing techniques magazine for satellite TV dealers. Our single purpose is to help dealers increase their sales and their profits through improved marketing techniques.
Call today for your subscription to success, 1-800-922-2812, Satellite TV Opportunities magazine.
The video courtroom appears to minister justice.
I have in my hand a copy of your tape, Marvin Mitchelson, everything you wanted to know about divorce but couldn't afford to ask. Can I afford the tape?
Well, I think you can. I think it's $29.95, and considering I charge $250 an hour usually for my time, I think to answer about 40, 45 questions within the hour is probably a good investment.
Are you in effect telling people how to do it? Is this a how to get a divorce tape?
No, it's not a how to get a divorce tape. What I'm trying to really do is demystify the process of divorce. A lot of people have some ideas about it and are afraid of it, of course, and don't know what to expect from a lawyer, don't know how to go about even getting a lawyer, and don't know what happens during the divorce process, don't know how long it's going to be, how the court systems are. And I do try to demystify that experience by explaining, what really happens in a divorce.
Mr. Mitchelson, there are several courtrooms these days that are using videotape as part of the legal process to present evidence, to present expert witnesses. How do you feel about that trend?
Well, I think it's certainly as a time-saving plan, it's terrific. Because, you get the expert's testimony, maybe you take some deposition testimony, or, witnesses that would be unavailable. You save time and expense in having to bring them into the courtroom. If both attorneys have the opportunity to directly and cross-examine the witnesses, that will really cut down trial time tremendously. It would also help the judge a lot, because the judge could be doing something else useful while the jury is, watching the tapes, unless it's a court trial, in which case the judge would have to pay attention. It takes something away from the courtroom drama and the live presentation, but, we're not there as theater. We're there to accomplish results for clients and to, get on with the lawsuits and resolve them. So I think they're very important if used properly.
Are you worried at all or concerned about the danger that these technologies might be misused in the legal process?
Well, that's always a problem, of course, but I think there has to be ground rules. I mean, for the use of any kind of taping in the courtroom particularly, I think the rules have to be established beforehand and everyone has to agree, because I wouldn't certainly want to agree that my cross-examination be edited. Well, I'd probably like that, to edit out the things that I felt I didn't do well, but that's not the way we do it. To have the jury get the overall impression and the overall view, you have to, present the whole tape.
Here is an intriguing idea, though, Mr. Mitchelson. Now, you have put out this tape. You have, in effect, franchised yourself by putting out these home video cassettes, this particular one on divorce. Is it conceivable that in the new era, as high-tech and video technology enters the courtroom, Marvin Mitchelson might be able to franchise himself as a lawyer in the courtroom and maybe be representing several clients in several courtrooms at the same time through videotape?
That's something I hadn't thought of, but I imagine if we did it by videotape, I guess we could run several trials in several cities at once. I don't know that we call it franchising, but it would certainly allow you to be in more than one place at the same time. Of course, I don't know that we want to mail in or send in as a substitute for in-person presentation. Everything we do in the field of law, I think there has to be some contact between the jury, the plaintiff, and the lawyers. But, we may come to the point where we have less of that.
Mr.
Keep
Mitchelson?
up with the system.
Marvin Mitchelson, thank you very much for joining us today from Los Angeles via satellite and being our guest on the New Tech Times.
A pleasure.
Hi, welcome to this week's segment of Inside Out on Space Showtime. I'm Pat Porter, Skeet and Leela's boy. I'm coming to you from location from Big Spring, Texas. I'm glad to have you here with me. You know what we were doing for entertainment 100 years ago? We were doing this. Oh, these are rib bones. Have you ever heard anybody play the rib bones? It's not a big trick. Watch. Listen. I'll tell you what, this isn't really a big trick. A lot of people can do it. I learned to do this watching a fellow named Bones Noble. And Bones Noble said that when times got really tough back during the last Depression, he picked up a couple of pair of rib bones, pork rib bones, and he went around with little get-up bands, and he made a living with 2 pair of pork rib bones for over 40 years. And I decided that I might ought to learn that trick because, as I've said to you before, you know, the more things you know how to do, the harder it is to starve you to death. Now, folks, I'm going to tell you we're in a little bit of a crisis right now. The cable people and the programmers are getting together, and this is what we're going to be doing for entertainment. If you don't start to write your congressman and to ask him to take care of your rights. You know, we like to had a crisis at the house the other night. The electricity went off, and as soon as those kids found out that you couldn't run that TV on coal oil, I thought we were going to have a tragedy. What was it? The family that was snowed in for a week? Oh boy, we'll popcorn, we'll make fudge, and we'll play Monopoly. In about 3 days, the first one to say fudge, popcorn, or Monopoly got thrown out in the snow. Well, let me tell you what, when you're sitting there and when we're visiting again, you think about these bones, and let me tell you this, I learned to play them so you wouldn't have to. And this is Pat Porter, and I'll see you next week. Thanks for being with us.
I'm Pat Olson, and joining me is Joe Kelsch at the Winter minutes ago entertainment and the entertainment related a little bit. And could you tell me how that works, Joe?
Many thousands of them, and I presume, skate and entertainment. Get some along entertainment.
Our corporate sponsors for this show have North America, STV and OnSat magazines, and Cultronics Incorporated. And we want to let you know that we have a rebroadcast of this show on Wednesdays at 12 noon Eastern on SpaceNet 1, Channel 17, and that's besides our Tuesday evening at 9 o'clock Eastern, SpaceNet 1, Channel 17.
Right.
We'll see you next week on Space